Sutra of Resources, Law, and Desire. If everything seems fine, it means we don't know something. When desiring something, it's worth remembering what accompanies that desire. The great ancient Greek philosopher Epicurus advised, when choosing an object of desire, to weigh the pleasures and sufferings we will experience as a result of fulfilling that desire. This applies to everything in our world. Good and evil always walk hand in hand. At any given moment, one is more prominent or simply more significant to us. The ancient Chinese took this idea further. In the famous Book of Changes, they elaborated on the idea of the constant transition of one state of affairs into another. Complete well-being is a fleeting moment of total absence of negativity, which is inevitably followed by a long sequence of gradual worsening, culminating in total collapse. This collapse, in turn, is also only a moment, which is then replaced by a tendency toward improvement. Thus, complete well-being and complete collapse are merely fleeting moments between long cycles of rise and decline that continually replace each other. The human being will receive only what they have strived for. Their endeavors will be witnessed, and then they will receive full recompense. Quran 53:39-41. History offers many illustrations of this principle. One of the most famous examples is told by Herodotus about the circumstances surrounding the death of the tyrant Polycrates. A tyrant, in ancient Greece, this term referred to a ruler who seized power by force. Of the wealthy and prosperous island of Samos, Polycrates considered himself a fortunate man. He had everything, and nothing threatened him. His fleet sailed all the seas. His army conquered every city on land. The Athenian tyrant Pisistratus and the Egyptian pharaoh Amasis were his friends and allies. His court was resplendent with luxury. One day, Polycrates received a letter from his friend Amasis. The pharaoh, who had experienced both good fortune and misfortune in life, wrote to Polycrates, "My friend, I rejoice in your happiness. But I remember that fate is fickle, and the gods are envious. I fear that the more cloudless your happiness, the greater your future misfortune will be. In everything, there must be balance, and joy must be tempered with sorrow. Therefore, heed my advice, take what you love most and relinquish it. Perhaps by enduring a small sorrow, you can avert a greater disaster." Polycrates, though a tyrant, understood that the world is governed by law, and law is balance, so he realized that his friend was right. He had a beloved emerald ring in a gold setting, with a seal of exquisite craftsmanship. He put the ring on his finger, boarded a ship, and sailed into the open sea. There, he removed the ring, waved his hand, and threw it into the waves before the eyes of his companions. Several days passed, and a fisherman came to Polycrates' court. "I caught a fish of unprecedented size and decided to bring it to you as a gift, Polycrates." Polycrates generously rewarded the fisherman, and the fish was sent to the kitchen. Suddenly, the servant gutting the fish let out a joyful cry. Inside the fish was Polycrates' emerald ring. It had returned to its owner. Shocked, Polycrates wrote to Amasis about this, and received the following reply: "My friend, I see that the gods are against you. They do not accept your sacrifices. A small misfortune has not befallen you, so expect a great one. From now on, I break off our friendship, so that I may not suffer from seeing a friend endure hardships that I am powerless to prevent." Criminal desires are the height of misfortune. It is less regrettable to not get what you desire than to achieve something it is criminal to desire. Cicero. Very soon, Polycrates' fortune changed. He was treacherously captured by Oroetes, the Persian governor of Sardis. Polycrates was executed with such cruelty that Greek historians dared not describe it. His body was crucified. The story of Polycrates is, of course, an extreme example of the alternating white and black stripes of life. However, it's essential to remember that after a black stripe, there is always a white one. Even death, the most bitter sorrow, can sometimes be seen as a moment of liberation from earthly suffering, thus, a blessing. No wonder the Russian tradition speaks of the deceased, he has finished his suffering. It is always important to remember that nothing happens without reason, and nothing passes without leaving a trace. Everything has its flip side, either positive, leading to prosperity and growth, or negative, leading to despair and degradation. Electrophysiological experiments using electrodes implanted in the brain have allowed physiologists to study the processes involved in forming motivations, needs, and the emotions accompanying their fulfillment, i.e., subjective evaluation, on the scale of good-bad. These studies confirmed the existence of both a negative and a positive reinforcement system in the human brain. The first protects the body from dangerous and harmful environmental factors that disrupt its adaptive abilities. The second, conversely, works to reward the body for actions that increase its adaptability and fulfill its needs and desires. With the development of civilization, humanity has learned to activate the positive reinforcement system through food and various psychoactive substances, deriving pleasure even when health is not in question. For example, taking a psychotropic substance disrupts the brain's neurochemistry. On the one hand, this can ease the body's adaptation to new conditions, on the other, it can lead to addictive behavior, as the body grows fond of the state of ease. He who desires much sees nothing. The most striking confirmation of this is the consequences of alcohol abuse. Like any disease, alcoholism develops due to specific pathobiological mechanisms. It arises and progresses as a result of a combination of environmental and genetic factors. The pathological craving for alcohol possesses dominant traits, outweighing other motivations in human behavior. Consequently, alcohol is consumed not so much for a purpose, to have fun, relax, escape problems, or gain courage, but in spite of many negative consequences, such as broken family, social, and professional ties, health deterioration, and frequent unpleasant hangover states. The temporary euphoria creates a sense of calm and bliss, forming around the person an alternate reality where no problems exist. The price for this state is the degradation and disruption of the individual's ability to adapt to society. The same applies to other forms of addiction, including gambling, drugs, and even, to some extent, food. If everything seems fine, it means we don't know something. Often, what we desire most appears to be of utmost importance and necessity, but it is crucial to understand the price we will pay for fulfilling these desires. Are we prepared to pay it? The human brain has the ability to quickly become captivated by what brings positive emotions and rich, vivid experiences. Our goals often draw us into a pleasant game in which we believe we can set our own rules. In pursuit of fulfilling cherished desires, we often forget about the world around us and those close to us. Gradually, as we become more engrossed in this game, we become its prisoners and fall into a state with pronounced symptoms of addiction. One can spend years striving to build a house with enough space for all their loved ones, only to lose their love and respect along the way, killing their desire to be near. It is important to remember that current tasks should not overshadow our primary goals. There is no aspiration more natural than the aspiration for knowledge. Michel de Montaigne. This truth is reflected in developed religious systems. According to Islam, Earthly life is merely a preparatory stage for the life to come. The life of this world is nothing but play and amusement, but the home in the hereafter is best for those who are righteous. Will you not then understand? Quran 29:64. Islam does not prohibit following one's desires but emphasizes the need to use the time granted by Allah in the most beneficial way. Muslims believe that one should cut off idle conversations, actions, and thoughts that do not bring them closer to Allah. I did not create jinn and humans except to worship me. Quran 51:56. Worship includes anything that strengthens a Muslim's faith, iman, and may be expressed not only through prayer, fasting, reading the Quran, and other religious texts, but also through serving others by performing good deeds. Fulfilling worldly desires should not hinder the preparation for meeting Allah. One should not delay this preparation, as there may not be enough time. No soul knows what it will earn tomorrow, and no soul knows in which land it will die. Quran 31:34. In Islam, there is a special prayer through which the believer turns to Allah, known as dua. The dua for fulfilling desires is recorded in the Quran. According to Islamic traditions, Allah helps those who are wholly devoted to Him. Islam involves more obedience and reverence than many other religions. When making a dua for the fulfillment of desires, it is unacceptable to dictate one's will to the higher powers. Prayer in Islam is a humble request to the Almighty for mercy. Everything in the world happens by the will of Allah, so a believer cannot protest or insist, even mentally, on a desired outcome. Thus, whatever Allah has predestined for them, including all consequences that accompany the fulfillment of their desires, whether positive or negative, the Muslim should accept with gratitude and reverence. Not everything you wish for comes true. In Christian teachings, a lesson can be drawn from the following gospel story. Then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to him. "Teacher," they said, "we want you to do for us whatever we ask." "What do you want me to do for you?" he asked. They replied, "Let one of us sit at your right and the other at your left in your glory." "You do not know what you are asking," Jesus said. "Can you drink the cup I drink or be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with?" Mark 10:35-38. John Chrysostom explains, "Do you see how they do not know what they are asking when they attempt to discuss crowns and rewards, leadership and honors, before the trials have even begun?" Thus, when Jesus says to them, "You do not know what you are asking," he hints that they, seeking leadership and higher honors at such a moment, aiming to appear more glorious and famous than the others, are doing so at a very inappropriate time. For this was not a time for crowns and rewards, but a time for trials, toils, struggles, and battles. And in obtaining what they desire, they will also receive all the trials and anxieties that come with it. The core of Buddhist teaching lies in the Four Noble Truths. First, life is suffering and therefore evil. Who can claim that their life is perfectly happy and that everything goes as they wish, rather than the opposite? Second, the cause of human suffering and misery lies in the constant craving for something, broadly understood as desire. People always strive for something, have certain desires, and thirst for their fulfillment. The circle of desires is always larger than the circle of possibilities. Since possibilities do not align with desires, we expand our capacities and improve ourselves to achieve what we desire, setting goals and striving for them, and thus our whole life is a struggle and strain. Our desires are a horizon that keeps retreating, and our life is a constant chase after the unachievable and impossible, which is why it is suffering. According to the third truth, suffering can be overcome by eliminating desire, i.e., narrowing the circle of one's wishes. The complete elimination of desires. Asceticism is the path to a righteous life. The fourth truth explains this path. To achieve happiness, one must relinquish constant striving for it and, above all, stop seeking it in the places where most people try to find it, in the satisfaction of temporary, vain, and illusory material needs. Since you cannot do everything you want, desire only what you can achieve. Terence. Every coin has two sides. Nevertheless, Buddhism does not consider all desires to be bad. Many desires are healthy and necessary. When we are hungry, thirsty, or cold, our desires for food, water, and warmth are natural and positive. Our desires for friendship, community, beauty, creative power, and productive energy outlets are also positive. Finally, we seem to have an innate desire to realize our spiritual potential, and without this, we would never be able to grow and develop. To eradicate all desires would be to condemn ourselves to a life of stagnation. But we must always clearly understand the cost we will pay for fulfilling our desires. The author of a well-known book on Kabbalah, Michael Lettman, writes, "Thought is the product of desire. Therefore, a person thinks about what they desire and does not think about what they do not desire. They cannot do otherwise, their desires guide them. Reason, thought, and all our properties are directed by desire." This highlights the importance of paying great attention to the sphere of desires, upon which our entire life depends. For when a desire is fulfilled, it brings with it a whole trail of consequences. To cultivate a more conscious attitude toward one's desires, one can use certain elements of neurolinguistic programming, NLP. We often formulate our desires in terms like, I want love, a house, money, ... This is the typical structure of the so-called Milton model of language, which involves the use of artful vagueness in expressions. Our task in this context is to remove the vagueness from the images of our desires, which prevents us from seeing what lies behind the realization of the set goals in detailed and specific terms. In other words, we must move from the query "I want," to reflecting on what will happen when my desire is fulfilled. What will we receive when we get what we so eagerly desire? This will bring us closer to understanding that everything that happens in our lives carries both good and bad. Fate leads the willing, but drags the unwilling. From an NLP perspective, when we dream about fulfilling our desires, we are always in a dissociated state, i.e., seeing ourselves from the outside as if watching a movie where we play the leading role, as opposed to an associated state where we are inside the film, experiencing the events as if through our own eyes and body. We imagine ourselves by the sea without thinking about sea urchins in the water that we might step on, trash and broken glass on the beach, or scorching hot sand. In other words, we see beautiful roses but do not feel the pain of their thorns. When we dream of something, we do not consider the losses that might accompany the fulfillment of our dream. For example, a successful political career often leads to the loss of close friendships. A successful entrepreneur might find themselves lacking time for family, needing to change habits, and giving up many of their hobbies. Fulfilling the dream of building a house will obligate one to care for it and spend considerable resources maintaining it. Thus, any dream is not just the positive aspects we envision in our dissociated state, everything has a downside. Desire blinds us, and we are often deceived by it, said the French writer Romain Rolland. And he added, but if we gave up desire, all life would be a mistake. It happens that a person does not receive what they dream of so fervently. They might fail to find the right job, meet their soulmate, have children, or save for a home. In such situations, people feel unhappy and utterly helpless. This feeling of disappointment only grows when a person begins to believe that everyone around them possesses everything they dream of. They start comparing, suffering even more, and become convinced that fate is unjust and that their life has failed. In such moments of dissatisfaction with life, everything seems black and white. They see themselves as incredibly unfortunate and deprived of everything, while others appear to have everything and enjoy life to the fullest. What this person does not understand is that they are seeing only the negative sides of their life and completely ignoring the good they already have. Their idea of a dream is also one-sided. The fulfillment of the desire is imagined only in a positive light because, in their view, a dream cannot have any downsides. Without ideals, that is, without some desires for the better, no good reality can ever come about. Fyodor Dostoevsky. Desire is the father of thought. William Shakespeare. What should we do and how should we react if we can't achieve our desires during a rough patch? Psychologists recommend first working on our desires. Unfortunately, life is not like most Hollywood movies with happy endings. It's quite possible that our desires don't come true because they're disconnected from reality. Maybe it's worth considering whether our dream is truly perfect and necessary or if we need to change something about it. Are we ready, after careful analysis, to handle all the consequences of a fulfilled plan? Do we have the strength to manage the achievement without feeling disappointed? We should think about whether the price of our goal is too high or if the goal itself is out of touch with reality. In this case, the best option is to reassess our attitude toward the situation and, if possible, give our goal a broader definition. Of course, life has many disappointments. Psychological maturity means being able to cope with different situations and being flexible. As Charles Darwin said, it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the one most adaptable to change. Everything has its price. If you can't achieve what you desire, it doesn't mean life has failed. Perhaps it wasn't as necessary as we previously thought. We should adapt our desires to reality by examining both the positive and negative sides of achieving what we want. Maybe our current dream isn't really what we want deep down. Oscar Wilde expressed a brilliant thought on this matter. In life, there are two real tragedies: one is not getting what you want, and the other is getting it. The thing is, we live in an unpredictable world governed not only by deterministic laws but also by chance and improvisation. The threads of events are weaving into the fabric of our lives in real time, and this process is planned not just for the present but also for the future. Like a rug, alongside the front pattern, there's also the reverse side, where knots, ties, and structures of the front pattern are hidden. A specific person is a unique whole, where it's quite difficult to differentiate between physical, mental, and spiritual levels in individual experience. What do we truly know about a person? A human being is a mystery, like the Sphinx. The modern philosophical situation is marked by a crisis in the traditional understanding of humanity, driven by the recognition of the impossibility of creating a complete model of the human being. One of the slogans of postmodern philosophy has been the idea of the death of the subject, the dissolution of the individual into vital, technical, semantic, and other processes. Those who desire much will miss even the small. So, how do we figure out what is acceptable to desire and what isn't? We should rely on a sense of moderation, compare our observations with the thoughts of great minds, and tap into the wisdom of folk sayings that have long revealed the laws of spiritual life. If you desire too much, you'll lose the last of it, says a Russian proverb. A Japanese saying bitterly sums up a simple but often forgotten truth: the bag of desire has no bottom. People love to make wishes and dream about them coming true. Few people think about how important it is to properly formulate their desires and how they may regret it if they actually come true. Every desire has a flip side. We rarely fully understand what we truly want, said François de la Rochefoucauld. Esoteric traditions believe that our wishes will come true if we formulate them correctly. First, the desire needs to be written down in the present tense, without using the word not or any negative words. Second, it must have a time frame for fulfillment, within reason, of course. Third, the desire should be detailed and emotional. Lastly, it's important to humbly ask for help from higher forces. If you believe in God, pray for the wish to come true. If you're an atheist, create your own protective phrase. Finally, don't obsess over your wish. Move toward your dream with thoughtful and reasonable actions, and your wish will surely come true. There are also suggestions from psychologists. Here are a few. 1. You should only have one desire when you make a wish. 2. The desire should not depend on the fulfillment of other desires. 3. It should evoke emotions, not new desires. 4. The desire should be environmentally friendly, meaning no one should suffer as a result. 5. The desire should be about you and not involve third parties. 6. Wish for the maximum because the bigger the desire, the more you will receive. There's always a balance between rights and responsibilities, between pros and cons. If we gain something positive, we must be prepared to accept something negative in return. Or, put another way, we must be ready for the fact that every fulfilled desire will come with a cost of some kind. If we get what we wanted, we shouldn't be surprised when we have to pay for it later. Sometimes in unexpected ways. This payment could be in the form of time, money, or even health. Love to ride, love to carry the sled. When the cost is calculated before achieving the desire, we can, to some extent, control the process. But if the cost comes after the wish is already fulfilled, we often have no choice in how to pay. So, before passionately wishing for something, think carefully about what the consequences might be if that wish is granted.